I'm going to talk to you about the very basics of Git that you need to actually do anything. Because a lot of the tutorials online are like, let's teach you a bunch of features you do not need for working on your own, and just with small projects. So, like, my cousin was trying to figure out Git for her programming learning projects, and she was like, I'm so confused. I literally just explained to her the basics she needed over text, and she was like, it works. Like, why was that hard? It wasn't hard. So I'm just going to go over what you need, the very basics of what you need. You don't need much more than this. And then, as your needs grow, if you make a more complicated project, you can then learn about branching. You can learn about forking and pull requests and stuff like that later on. You don't need it right now. Okay, first step is you're going to need to download Git if you don't already have it. I'm in Linux. I have it installed. I don't know if Git just comes with Linux Mint or not. I don't remember. But if you're in Windows, you'll have to come here, click on download, go to Windows, and download it from here and then install. When you're installing, I guess, I don't know if it gives you the option of doing one or the other, but it will generally install two versions of Git for you. There'll be the UI version, and there'll be the command line version. I prefer the command line version because it is simpler. You just need to memorize some like 5 commands, and then that's all you need. I don't bother with the UI version. It just is a pain in the butt. Maybe you can do it later if you want to. I'm just going to go over the super basics from the command line because it's simpler. So here's my GitLab. This is where I throw my repositories. I'm going to create a new project. You can also do this. It's the same in like Bitbucket and GitHub. This is going to be example source control. And I'm going to delete this afterwards because I don't want it stinking up my repository list. So I just create a project. You do the same thing in GitHub or Bitbucket. And then there's a clone button. I'm going to just go with HTTPS because I'm not going to teach you how to set up the SSH key because that's a pain in the butt. You don't need it for the super basics. So whenever you have a repository, I guess my hand over here, whenever you have a repository, it'll give you an HTTPS URL and an SSH URL. SSH is faster, but you have to do some configuration ahead of time. If you clone with HTTPS, it'll ask you to log in. If it's a private repository, you have to log in for both checking out and pushing up there. If it's a public, you can clone whatever you want, but you have to log in to push. Okay, so we have this project made. I'm going to clone it, so I have to copy this. Then I'm currently over here in Linux Mint, but it'll be similar in Windows where you just go to a directory where you want your project. You right click. In Windows it'll say open Git Bash here or something like that. I'm going to just open the terminal. Git Bash is the command line, and then I don't know if it was just called Git UI for the UI, but we're using Bash. We're using the command line. So I have copied my URL from this website over here, and if I want to actually bring it down onto my computer, I use git clone and then the URL. So I'll type in git clone and I can paste that in. In Git Bash, I think you can right click to paste, or there'll be like a little button over here. You can click on that and there'll be a drop down menu and it will say paste. And then also maybe Control-Shift-V might work as paste. I'm not in Windows, I don't know. So here, I made a private repository. If it were public, it would just bring everything down, but since it's private, I have to type in all my stuff. And so now it's done. And this is just named example source control, so that is here now. So I have my project on my hard drive. Good first step. Over here in my terminal, it is still in the projects folder. If you're not comfortable with navigating directories, I would just close this and reopen a terminal when you need it. If you wanted to navigate to the folder, you could say cd, change directory, both in Windows and in Linux, and then the name of your folder for your project. Otherwise, just right-click and go to Terminal or open Git Bash again. Okay, so this one started out with a README. That's fine. We're just going to make some changes. Let's just say blah.cpp, and I'll just edit this with some quick stuff. There, I wrote some code. It works. Okay, now when I built that, it created an exe file. I mean, it's not literally .exe here, but it created an executable file. I could make a gitignore, because sometimes your program code will generate compile files, OBJ files, a bin folder and stuff, and you do not need that in your repository. That gets generated every time you build your project. You don't need it. You can write a gitignore. We'll talk about that later. But let's say now I want to put this source file in my repository. How do I get it up there? Well, I need to say git add, and then I can tell it what to do. So do I want to add all of my CPP files? Do I want to add one file? So I could type in blah.cpp. Side note, I'm pressing tab while I'm typing things and it auto-completes. Right now it doesn't know if I want that or CPP, but so you can type in git add and then file name. Maybe I should adjust this font to be a little smaller. You can also do git add, and I could do star.cpp to add all CPP files. I could do dot, and that will add every file, which I don't want. I don't want to add that extra one. So here I put -n. That's like, do a dry run. Just tell me what you would add, but don't actually do it. So that's just an extra little thing. I'm going to do git add blah.cpp, because that's the only file I want to put on the repository right now. And you know, if you just have a bunch of source files, you could do blah star.h, star.hpp, whatever your source file things are. I also use it to store, like, I use Git for storing stories and little utilities and stuff like that. So you could even put like a text file if you needed. Okay, so adding stuff. Good. It's added, but it's not on the server. I can refresh that. It's not on the server. We're just making changes locally. We're kind of getting files ready to say, okay, this is going to be a bundle of stuff we're going to commit at the same time. We're going to make a snapshot of these changes. So I can next do git status and just review what is available here. So this is my exe file. It's named, it doesn't have an exe extension in Linux, but if it were in Windows, it'd be like a .exe or something. Don't need it. It's in red. It's untracked. Git is currently not paying attention to any changes, but it has changes to be committed here. So I know that it's going to add blah.cpp. It's just sitting there kind of waiting for me to do something. So I could make more changes and then re-add that file, but I'm just going to go ahead and make a commit. Making a commit makes a snapshot of its state right now. So again, if I open this with my text editor, let's say this is the first feature. This feature is done. We want to, save this for later. This is where we would make a backup. So I'm going to say git commit. Now, what I like to do is use the -m flag for message and just put my message here immediately. If you don't put -m, it will open up a text editor, and based on your install, it could open up something like vim. Let's put msg. I don't know. No, it's too big. If you just kind of went with the default installs, it might install vi, which is a thing, and you probably don't know how to use it. If you open up vi, type in colon and then q to actually quit it. That's how you have to quit the software. That's why I don't use vi. But sometimes it'll open up Notepad. It's whatever you set up as the text editor. I just do git commit -m and I type in my message here in these double quotes. So let's just say, it should be descriptive of what you changed so you can find it later if you need. Added hi feature. So now it says that was committed. We have that. I could do git status, and it's saying, okay, well, there's nothing waiting to be committed. Still have untracked files, but we're good. Still not on the server yet. We just made a commit. We can make a series of commits before we push it to the server. So let's say this was one feature, and now we add the by feature. So again, git status, look, modified, blah.cpp, git add blah.cpp, git commit added by feature. There. Git status is, just going to give us there's nothing currently changed. All right, so I have 2 things committed, like 2 sets of snapshots. Now, if I want to push it to the server, I think I can just start with git push. There are some extra flags if you wanted to do different branches, but for the most part, git push on its own will take care of you with all the defaults. I have to type in my credentials because I did HTTPS. Now if I refresh over here, I see my blah file. I can go to the list of commits, and I can see, the initial commit it made for me. Here's the high feature, here's the by feature. I can click on one of these and see what changed. So here, all of this changed in the by feature. I literally just added 1 line, so it just shows this 1 line. And then it shows up in here. So that's good. That's most of what you need. Now, if you were working on multiple computers, or if you were working with somebody else and you're just keeping it really basic, you would also need to be able to pull changes from the server afterwards. So from here, I'm going to just do a little edit. I'm going to do... So I can make this edit from the website. You can do this in GitHub also. So I've made a change here. I don't have this change on my local system. Even if I reopen this, it's still the same. Because these don't automatically sync together. I have to, I don't necessarily want new changes to affect my code while I'm working on something. Like if you were working with other people, you wouldn't want their stuff breaking what you're working on at the time. But let's say I worked on that computer over there, and now I'm over here again, and I want to continue making changes. Maybe I did some changes at school, and I need to do some stuff here now. So I'm going to do git pull, and then that's going to pull from that repository. So I have to log in again because this is a private repo. Pull, type in password, hope I got it right. Okay, so it gives you some information. It pulled, it fast forwarded our files. We got changes to blah.cpp. There were 3 insertions. So now this will reload. Now we have cake. So now this is local on our computer. So if you need to get changes, you just do pull. And if you are going to push your changes, that sends it to the server. So that's really all of the basics that you need. You only need these commands. And I think it's easiest if you're just working from the command line rather than having to try to figure out the UI, because there are different UIs for using source control, and you have to relearn each one. Here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 commands. And if you wanted to do branching, you could do branching after. You could learn about forking and pull requests, but again, that's just all optional. So the last thing here is, I told you before, I don't want to ever add this binary file to my project repository. It gets generated every time I compile my code. It's not needed. So I'm going to create a .gitignore file. Usually I'll just do it from here. If you're in Windows, you could do notepad.gitignore. Gitignore. I'm going to do nano because that's a text editor on Linux. So here, it's just a text file. I could also open it in Genie, I guess. You could download Genie for Windows if you'd like. So I have .gitignore, and I'm going to just say, don't add blah. I'm just typing the name. Or if I wanted, don't add obj files, or don't add the bin folder, don't add the object folder. It depends on if you're using Visual Studio. or, you know, whatever kind of compiler. So I made that, I saved it. If I do git status, it now doesn't show blah as an untracked file. It does show gitignore. I do want to add that in there. But if I added git add everything, git add dot, it's not going to add that blah file. I've made it ignore, it's good. So I could say added gitignore. We'll push that to the server. Gotta log in again. And then this is all updated. Voila, over here. Now we have a gitignore file. Okay. Final thing, if you happen to be using Visual Studio for your projects and doing C++ stuff, look up gitignore Visual Studio, or if you're using Eclipse, maybe look for that. There'll be these files. They will put all the stuff you need to ignore, because Visual Studio generates a lot of stuff you don't need. So just, you know, basically come here. You can view the raw file. You could copy and paste it from here. You could just download it. This is what you need in your gitignore file if you were working with Visual Studio. So you don't have all this crap. You just need your source code or your project file. I don't mind putting my project file in there because I usually use the same editor for everything. So I want that project file. But yeah, definitely if you're using Visual Studio, because Visual Studio projects are very big. As a teacher, when I download student source code and it like does it in a whole bundle, if they've all uploaded solution files, it takes so long. And really, source code is just text files. It doesn't need to take that long. So when you're submitting, I guess it depends on the teacher. I don't want to say don't submit your solution files. If I'm ever your teacher, don't give me your solution files because I'm not going to run them. I'm in Linux. So source code, keep the text files, plain text files. That's what source control is good for. Sometimes I write stories, and even that can be good for source control. Here we'll do a story. MD is Markdown, which like gives you simple formatting. I'm just going to write, once upon a time, there was a cheeseburger. Let's just do git add dot and git commit story and git push, and I gotta log in. We're gonna make some more changes. The cheeseburger was sad. Do it again. That's probably gonna mess up my login. I accidentally typed a button. That didn't like it. Git push. Okay, and now I'm gonna change the cheeseburger to a princess. Gonna do it again. Oops. Run that one. Rachel Wilshaw Singh. Commit that. Got it up here. We got our nice little store. Oh my gosh. I accidentally overwrote my gitignore file, so now I do have blah in my repository. Oops. Okay, well, here's my story. Let's view the source, the history up here. Oh, that's not quite what I wanted. We can view blame and see who changed what, but it was all me. I'm to blame for everything. But I can view the latest changes to story here. And I can see that cheeseburger was changed to princess. So yeah, I use this for writing text stories too, because I don't write stories in like LibreOffice or in Microsoft Office or anything. I just do plain text because I'm cool like that. Okay, that's really all I needed to tell you about source control and using Git and the Git basics. There's more stuff out there if you ever need it, but to start off with, this is really all you need. So use it. Stop losing your source code. Don't put it in Dropbox. That's a pain in the butt. Just use source control.